So what's the 411 with the SPB411? Sorry, I had to do it. This could be one of the best releases, or the best release that Seiko came out with in 2023, and it is amazing. It's a vintage inspired re-release of the Navigator timer, and they did a very faithful recreation of that original automatic GMT. It gets an Explorer style look, it gets a beautiful bracelet, a bi-directional friction fitted bezel, and this has to be one of the best bezels that I've experienced on a Seiko in quite some time. This comes in at a great price, it has great looks, and it feels like a vintage watch. So let's flip the camera and take a look at the SPB411 Navigator timer reissue from Seiko. This could be the best Seiko release of 2023. This is the new Landmaster Mechanical GMT. It's a limited edition, and it is a reissue of the Navigator timer from the late 1960s. This is a very faithful reissue of that watch, and it is almost exactly the same dimensions. So what they've done here is given you a case that looks exactly the same as the original. You get an anthracite gray dial, a little bit darker of a chapter ring, a red GMT hand, which really stands out against that gray background. You have an applied Seiko logo, applied indices. I believe the lume is actually applied to that chapter ring. And then you get a boxed sapphire crystal, which looks very vintage and looks great on this watch. One other thing that they've done here is given you a friction fitted bezel, which works beautifully. Now, before we move on, I do want to mention that this watch was lent into the channel by ExquisiteTimepieces.com. They are an authorized dealer of Seiko and many other brands. They are located down in Naples, Florida. Definitely check out their website. I will put a link to this watch, which they have currently in stock on their website if you are interested. Again, this is a limited edition of around 4,000. However, considering how good this watch is, I think this will eventually sell out. So if you are interested, definitely contact Exquisite Timepieces and tell them Watch Chris sent you. I was mentioning dimensions before. These are very, very close to the original. So this is a 38.5 millimeter watch at the case. It's around 37.7 millimeters at that bezel. It's around 12.5 millimeters thick. That's including that domed and boxed sapphire crystal that you can see when you turn it on its side. It has a very small crown at 4.2 millimeters and then a 45 millimeter lug to lug. And that is a true lug to lug because you do get female end links. So the bracelet is a little bit different from the original. The original had a little bit of a cheaper feeling bracelet. However, I would say that this watch feels very vintage on wrist, and it feels very vintage in your hands. The bracelet's a little bit upgraded, obviously, over that original version. Well, I would say a lot upgraded because you have solid links, polished sides, everything on the top is brushed. It looks like a vintage tool watch. You do get a nice clasp on here. I'm glad that they put this clasp on here. It's a small clasp. It says Seiko on it right there. It's just a little clasp, but it really does fit with the design of this watch. You have a multi-link bracelet, which, like I said, is mostly brushed, and it is very angular. They're kind of chunky. It's a really nice bracelet. It's not thick, but I wouldn't say it's thin. It feels very nicely made. Everything about this watch feels very nicely made, especially the bezel action, which is bi-directional and friction fitted. That means obviously everything lines up. That means the chapter ring, that 12 o'clock index, and of course that pip lines up perfectly, and it is really nice. It's very, very tight, and it works really very nice. It's a 24-hour bezel, and obviously you could use that to time a third time zone if you want to. Inside this watch is, of course, an automatic movement. It is the 6R54, which is a recent addition to the GMT arsenal of movements that Seiko have. This is a collar GMT or a military GMT, depends on what you want to call it. All that means is that when you put it into the second position, you can move the GMT hand or change the date. The date is at the 3 o'clock. You do not get a color match date wheel. However, what they've done is basically given you exactly what you would have gotten on the vintage version. So that's why you're not getting a color match date wheel. It does take the place of the index at 3 o'clock and sort of balances the 9 o'clock index. I think it looks good, and everything here really, looks very vintage. You also get a sunburst dial on here, that gray anthracite color. It really comes through really nicely. It looks beautiful. It says at the bottom of the dial, water resistance and 10 bar. I don't think the original actually said that. I think it said something different, but the script is very similar to the original, so they kept it looking like the original, which I really like. And like I said before, that Seiko is applied below. It does say automatic. That is printed on the dial. That's really it. This does get lume, and the price on here is $1,500. This is a limited edition of 4,000 pieces. Honestly, I would say that that is actually a very good price for this watch, considering the thought and the detail that went into it. It feels amazing. This is probably one of the nicest feeling Seikos that I have felt in a long time. It's also a really nicely sized watch as well. Other watches that are made by Seiko that are very large, like a 44mm watch, they do wear smaller. However, they don't wear as this does. This wears like a 39mm watch, I would say, and it really has a nice vintage look and feel. I really do like this a lot. I think they did an excellent job. The hands on here are stick hands, and then you have a needle seconds hand. There is no lume on there, obviously. That original did not have lume, so I guess that's the reason why they didn't put any lume on the hand or on that second hand. And then the GMT hand is a red arrow. That is a little bit of lume on there. Quickly, let me show you what I have on my wrist today. Today I have on my Cartier Santos ADLC XL. This is a watch that I have promised myself I will wear more in 2024 because I don't wear it very often. This is a 100-meter sport watch, very similar to the watch that we're looking at today, except obviously not a GMT. This would be interesting if they came out with this in a GMT form, but very thin watch, which I love to wear. This looks great on my 7.5-inch wrist. Like I said before, this is around a 38.5mm watch at that case, 45mm lug to lug, and you have a pretty thin watch with 100 meters of water resistance and a very boxed sapphire crystal with a around 12.5mm thickness. Very, very good. And the bracelet drapes very nicely on my 7.5-inch wrist. Very comfortable, very good looking watch. Well, there you go. Even though there is not a ton of lume applied to that chapter ring, it's still very bright because it's LumiBright. The hands are bright. That pip in the bezel, very bright, and also gives you orientation in the dark. And of course, that GMT hand, there's just a little bit of lume on that GMT hand so you could see the GMT time in the dark. I like this watch a lot. I think they did a great job. Usually I have a problem with Seiko in one way or another, but this, I think they hit the nail on the head, and I think a lot of people will like this watch. Limited to 4,000 pieces sounds like a lot, but when it comes to Seiko and the amount of watches that they actually sell, that's really not a lot for a limited edition from Seiko. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. Also, don't forget, this is available at exquisitetimepieces.com. If you're interested in this watch or really any watch, check out their website. They're an authorized dealer for something like 60 brands. So chances are they will have the watch that you're looking for. They also have used watches as well, pre-owned watches. If you do decide to buy something from them, please tell them that Watch Chris sent you. Also, if you want to reach out to a specific person, Ethan is a person there that helps me. I will put his email address down in the description below so you could reach out to him directly. And again, tell him that Watch Chris sent you. Anyway, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Thank you for checking out this watch. I hope you guys are having a great holiday, and I'll see you guys in the next video.